The origin story of my company, MIDAO, do this for a couple of minutes, try to fly through it too. So about 3 years ago, I left my job in finance to work on DAOs full time. And we quickly realized, as I was trying to build technology for DAOs, that there was this challenge that there was nowhere good to incorporate a DAO. Everywhere in the world, if you look to incorporate a DAO, and it turns out now this applies to all Web3 projects, not just DAOs, but they had bad token laws, bad securities laws, force you to have a board of directors, which a lot of DAOs don't want to do, force you to know the names and addresses of all the members of your company, which a lot of projects don't want to do in crypto. So my now co-founder and old friend knew a senator in the Marshall Islands, which is a sovereign nation in the South Pacific, former US territory, that is a leading jurisdiction in the shipping industry. So it's the second or third most popular jurisdiction in shipping. There's 80,000 companies registered there from all over the world. 40 of them are publicly traded on NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange, et cetera. So we reached out to this senator and said, hey, how would you like to expand your country's expertise from shipping into DAOs and Web3 and go up against Cayman and Swiss and Wyoming? And they liked the idea. And I'll just fast forward through the details, but fast forward to today, we've helped pass 3 laws in the Marshall Islands and a regulatory framework for Web3 broadly. It's actually now we're expanding it to AI because there's a really cool ability to have an AI as a manager, legal manager of a company, but really focused on solving those Web3 problems. So we created a nonprofit and a for-profit DAO LLC. So the nonprofit DAO LLC is actually the first nonprofit LLC in the world of any kind. We call it a DAO LLC, even though it's not just for DAOs, because that's what we originally built it for. And it allows you to have anonymous membership, to not have any managers if you don't want to have an algorithm as a manager, which is where the AI comes in, compelling securities treatment, token laws, all that stuff. We have over 200 projects signed up to date. And by the way, MIDAO stands for Marshall Islands DAO. That's the company I run, and it is the registry, so it partners with the registrar in the Marshall Islands, and it's the registered agent that you use if you want to set up one of these entities. You always need a registered agent wherever you want to set up an entity. So I'm not just going to talk about the Marshall Islands today. I'm going to try to give you a framework to evaluate legal entities in general, but obviously I come from a little bit of a Marshall Islands bias given the work I've done there. First of all, I want to make sure everyone understands why it's important to form a legal entity for your crypto project. Maybe this is obvious to everyone, but a few years ago, it was not obvious to people in crypto because it felt like we were just doing something different. So why do we have to do what everyone else does? But the fact is that virtually every government in the world, if you do not have a legal entity and you're working collaboratively with other people on a project of any kind, you will be considered a general partnership for both tax and legal liability purposes. And different countries have different words for it, and it works slightly differently. But in the US, for example, any one member of a project, a DAO, whatever, can be held liable for anything that goes wrong with the entire project, right? Literally, you can take away your house, your car, everything. If something goes wrong, you get sued by, a user or another member or another project or the government. And so that's one reason basically the deal the governments of the world give everyone is form a legal entity and we'll give you a liability shield. Pass through taxes. So that's the other big one, is that if you don't have a legal entity registered anywhere, then the people in the project are held personally liable for taxes on the project's earnings, for their share of the project's earnings, even if they've never seen a dime of that money. The other two, maybe smaller but meaningful issues, is that you can't enter into contracts, right? Whether you're trying to sponsor an event, buy a piece of property, rent a piece of property, right? Anything in the real world, open a bank account, any kind of contract, you can't do it unless you have a registered company somewhere, a legal entity. The other thing is that by choosing a legal entity, you're kind of opting into one set of laws and regulations. It doesn't mean you get to ignore all the other ones all the time, like securities laws especially, but at least you're opting into one jurisdiction rather than